I was a good ski racer growing up, but I wasn't the best. I was never the best. I was never physically the strongest. I'm not like a natural athlete that you would kind of put as your role model athletic figure, you know? So I think my story is more a story of the outlier that was stubbornly in pursuit of higher achievement, refused to take no as an answer. I think that's more my story, and making it up to the next level at each stage was not like an easy jump. It was kind of a fight. And I think in the end, that was kind of what gave me my strength in sport, was that my resiliency and continuing on and pushing and fighting to make it to that next level allowed me, once I got to that top level, I still had that kind of built into me to continue, and then continue on for as long as I did in the sport.
Hello and welcome to episode number 60 of the Rose Bros podcast. Today we are joined by Pat Biggs. Pat was first named to represent Canada as a member of the Canadian national ski team in May of 2004. Over a 9-year period, he competed at the international stage representing Canada at the 2006 Winter Games in Torino and the 2010 Winter Olympic Games in Vancouver. He placed in the top 10 at 2 World Championships and scored top 30 results on the World Cup circuit for 7 years. Graduating from Dartmouth College in 2012 with an AB majoring in engineering and studio art, he then moved into the next stage of his life and started a career as a professional artist in Ottawa, Ontario, with his wife and family. We sat down for a smooth cup of Rose Bros coffee and discussed the path to high-level ski racing, leveraging sport to an Ivy League degree, life after sport, balancing creativity with business, taking the path less traveled, and a lot more. Enjoy. Pat Biggs, good morning. I really appreciate you doing this.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
You are a retired professional skier. You're an artist, a creative, an entrepreneur, an athlete, you're a dad, a husband. How would you describe yourself?
I think I'd say I'm a self-described, I'd be a Renaissance man, a generalist, kind of dabble in a lot of things. And I think try to find things that I enjoy doing and use my passion to kind of drive those things forward and, create a living. And that's me.
That's cool. I coincidentally just finished the biography of Leonardo da Vinci by Isaacson. And
cool.
He was a Renaissance man of them all.
That's it. I haven't read it. I'm actually the least scholarly in art history. People kind of bring that subject up all the time, and I'm not very knowledgeable in the art domain. I just kind of am more of the creative versus the historian on that front.
It's probably better to be that way if you are the artist actually making the work. But originally you grew up, you were born in Australia, I think. And then
you're right.
Canada?
Yeah. I've got an Australian father and a Canadian mother. So I was born in Australia, and then we shifted over to Canada when I was about 5 years old. So I got my skiing legs under me in Australia. Yeah, we moved to Canada, and been here ever since.
How'd you get into ski racing?
I think it's a family affair. My parents were both ski racers. I think it's a pretty common story amongst ski racers that there's usually a link within the family that comes through. So my parents both raced, and quite competitively too. My mom was on the national development team and the Les Espoirs, it was called at the time. And then I think that's like the Hopefuls. And my dad raced for the Australian team, which the Australian team, I think at the time they had a lot of, his group was kind of Europa Cup focused. So he went over to Europe in the North American winter and then raced in the Australian winter when he was home.
Ended up in Canada, and they obviously put you into ski racing. And did you always want to be a ski racer? Was that your goal?
I can't really recall if it was like a goal of mine. I don't think I was driven on that front. I just really it was just something we did as a family. All our vacations, all our time together was spent on the ski hill. And I really loved that. And I think, my brother did too. And it just kind of developed, we kind of went into the racing programs without expectations. Our parents never put expectations on us. And we just really enjoyed it. And it just kind of progressed and progressed. And I think at a certain point, we'd watch, at the time, we'd have, CBC coverage of wide world of skiing, and we'd watch the races on TV. And we'd watch these World Cup races and record them on VHS tapes and watch them over and over again. That was kind of what we did before YouTube existed. And yeah, at a certain point, I think, I don't know, around like 11, 12, I was, it'd be really cool to be a racer. Like, could do this one day. But I never like had an exact time where like, I'm going to be a professional ski racer. I didn't really have that audacity to make that statement, I guess. Mm-hmm. It was kind of just internal all the time.
Mm-hmm. You were pretty good at the end of the day. You ended up racing in 2 Olympic Games. You were on the national team for, I think it was a decade almost. You're obviously really good. Did you have a moment when you kind of started to realize you were going to take it ski racing seriously?
I guess I was like stubborn in my pursuits. I was a good ski racer. I'd say a very good ski racer in growing up, but I wasn't the best. I was never the best. I was never physically the strongest. I'm not like a natural like athlete that you would kind of, put as your role model athletic figure, So I think my story is more like a story of the outlier that was stubbornly in pursuit of higher achievement, refused to take no as an answer. I think that's more my story, and making it through up to the next level at each stage was not like an easy jump. It was kind of a fight. And I think in the end, that was kind of what gave me my strength in sport, was that my resiliency and continuing on and pushing and fighting to make it to that next level allowed me, once I got to that top level, I still had that kind of built into me to continue, and then continue on for as long as I did in the sport. That's how I'll put it.
When you were a little younger, around 18, finishing high school, did you think maybe you just give ski racing a go and see where it went? Or did you think I need to transition to a career? Or what was that process like?
I think when I finished high school, all I was thinking about was skiing. Like really? Like I said, I wasn't like a natural fit for, moving up to that national team or national development team where, you would go on that direct path towards the World Cup. I was, borderline, but, didn't make that jump. And I think I was fortunate enough. I had like a mother. My mom's amazing. Well, my parents are amazing. My mom particularly had the foresight to look at options where I could combine and continue ski racing, because she knew how much it meant to me. Found, all these universities in the US under the NCAA that, had these performance ski programs that I could pursue a university education and try to take that path as an alternative. And it wasn't really like, I don't think she thought it was like an alternative where I could continue ski racing and then make a jump to the national team. It was more like, okay, how can I keep my son like engaged in the sport and offer him education and make sure he's motivated? And I'm very grateful for that. Mm-hmm. And strangely enough, and oddly enough, like it did actually offer me a pathway to the national team, which I think nowadays, like people look at it as a common path or like a typical path for a tech skier, where the national team doesn't particularly have a development team right now, that you can go to the US, race NCAA, and then make that jump or that pivot towards the World Cup. Where at the time when I went, I don't think there was a single Canadian that had ever made the jump from NCAA racing to the World Cup. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a cool experience for me, and certainly challenged the status quo in Canada of where our development and our pathways, what opportunities there can be outside of the typical pathways, for better or for worse. I don't know if it's helped, but we've had a few kids that have kind of followed in my footsteps and made those jumps through the NCAA circuit to particularly in the World Cup Tech, with Eric and some of that crew there. That's cool.
When you went to university, were you thinking this was kind of your backup plan and that your goal was maybe to get back on the World Cup and win gold medals and be a champion? Or did you have the artist in mind when you were going through that period?
I think my first years in university, I was still, gung-ho on achievement in sport and trying to push the limits of where I could take my athletics and using the university as my means to do so. They had a great team and a great program. My first year, I think I took the easiest courses I could find so that I wouldn't be stressed out about missing so much school and traveling to all the races. Probably the best one I took was like a Russian literature course that focused on witches and firebirds and stories of these old time. I mean, I think that was my path. The whole pathway into, where I wanted to go academically really kind of developed through a long period of time. The art was certainly like right at the end of my university career. I kind of pivoted from engineering into art through some drawing course that I took for architecture. And that's kind of what opened my doors to art. It's certainly not a pathway. It was like a real different world I hadn't been exposed to or hadn't focused on before.
One of the cool things about the sport is that you were able to get basically an Ivy League education out of it. When you started at Dartmouth, did you have a academic plan in mind?
I mean, I had like an idea of what I wanted to do. I think my personality on like a spectrum is not like red, like a yellow creative and like a blue kind of detail oriented. So the blue in me really liked kind of engineering. I think that was what I was drawn to. And that was kind of my path I'd kind of thought I would go through at university. And I focused kind of my courses around making sure I could get my prerequisites for the engineering. And then, I don't know. I think I hit my head a couple of times through my ski racing career, and it shifted some salts in my brain that got me thinking a little bit differently. And that artistic side kind of seemed to flourish in my last years. And just coincidentally, I took these art courses my last few terms at Dartmouth, and then my ski racing career ended simultaneously with my Dartmouth education. And I was like there home at summer, like not much to do, still like recovering from some concussion things. And I just painted, and that's kind of where the art career started from.
Did you do World Cup ski racing at the same time as you were doing your degree at Dartmouth?
I did. Yeah, I did.
See.
I did the university really. The first year I did full time with racing for the college, and then once I qualified for the national team, then I just did the Dartmouth spring terms. So I did schooling from kind of April through, end of June every year. So that took about 10 years to get through.
I see. When you were at Dartmouth, did you find yourself rubbing elbows with some prominent people of being at an Ivy League school like that?
Yeah, I don't know. It attracts like some cool people like that come through to give guest lectures. And notably, I think a name that'll come to mind is Obama came to Dartmouth like before he was even running for presidency. Cool. And he came through, and it was like one of those things I heard him talk on campus, well before he was running for president. It was just kind of a cool experience. And I don't know, it's fun getting those exposure to that kind of stuff. And
I think that's one of the values of a great education like that, is maybe the kind of people you meet at the end of the day, it sounds like.
Yeah, Dartmouth's a cool place. I like the U.S. system of liberal arts colleges, where you give students kind of a breadth of knowledge from different fields, and it creates like a pretty grounded group of people that think outside of their specialty and kind of attack problems from different ways. And the college itself really attracted a kind of a mix of athletes and outdoorsmen to academics. And I think that like mix was really cool to mingle with for so many years, and developed a lot of good friends. And I think those friends and the university really shaped me. And I'm grateful I got the opportunity to go there. I'd certainly recommend it to anybody with the liberal arts degree. It's super cool. I wouldn't be an artist if I went to university in Canada. That's for sure.
Right.
I would have started like full on intense engineering courses, day one at university. I would have specialized down a pathway and kind of been siloed into this group that I don't know if I would have had the courage to like jump out of after you've invested so many years down a degree like that, where the liberal arts, you kind of just get a taste of everything, and then you can kind of choose and discover, learn about yourself.
So while you were going to school, you were also competing on the World Cup circuit, which is awesome. Were you thinking in the back of your head the whole time that you maybe want to be a professional artist, or was your goal just to win World Cups and maybe make a career out of that? Yeah,
like I said, I think I was pretty present in the moment of athletics at the time. I was fully immersed in just trying to improve my improve my skiing and become a better ski racer. I think I'm often like that, just get engulfed in the present and the task at hand and what I'm trying to achieve, and don't look too far ahead
Yeah.
on other things. So yeah, no, I don't think I gave any thought on what kind of career I would have after skiing until
Really?
like literally after skiing just ended like quite suddenly.
So you got to the end of your racing career and you kind of thought to yourself you'd have to find a way to pay the bills. What was your goal at that time? To start a business, or was it to go work for somebody, or what were you thinking?
yeah, I don't think I'm very rational or logical on the whole making money thing. I don't give it a lot of thought. I kind of put a lot of faith in just doing things you really like doing, and hopefully they work out. The years after, I wanted to pursue the art, so I took that up. I think I really wanted to give back to skiing that had given me so much. So with my skill set and knowledge, like that was an easy way to kind of capitalize on some of that knowledge. So I got a job coaching after I finished my racing career, and that kind of role turned into an all-consuming 7 years of eventually like being the director of a race club, and that was a cool experience. Certainly went maybe a little deeper down that pathway than I think my sanity could take, but it was a really cool experience, kind of being involved in that world and seeing what running a club is all about, and developing coaches and working with kids and parents. So I think that went in tandem with my art, the ski coaching, that paint over the summers and a little bit part-time in the winter while kind of coaching and running a racing program. So the racing program kind of, paid the bills, the art paid some of the bills. And, I have a lovely, smart wife that I think is our kind of career-focused entrepreneur in our family that I think pays more of the bills, I'd say. So I'm happy to be the support crew on that front financially, and spend more time in the creative realm and taking care of the kids. I think that's my role right now, which is I'm pretty happy doing.
Did you ever worry about how you're going to support yourself and pay the bills and all that when your ski racing career ended?
I think I didn't worry. I think my family really worried about me. I think my girlfriend or my wife at the time worried a little bit, but I don't know. I think if you show enough passion with what you're doing and ingenuity about how you go about it, you don't need a lot of money to live, and you put that passion into what you really want to do, you can achieve like really great ends and like really great things. And usually when you're passionate about something and you try to do something impactful for society or something with really great purpose, people surround you and they support you, and usually the financial means or the financial ends come, or profits, and if you're talking about entrepreneurship, usually come behind that. I think to me, the key thing was making sure that I had a pathway of impact and purpose, and doing things that I really love doing. And I've been fortunate, and so far, like I've never had an issue with the financial side.
Paying rent, their mortgage.
Following those pathways. So,
what do you think the biggest lesson ski racing taught you was?
I think it's be persistent, set big goals, and just be resilient and fight to achieve them. If you believe in something and you've got a vision, and take that pursuit and like go after it. In this world, you're going to have probably more people telling you can't do something than telling you can. So you've really got to believe in yourself and just follow that dream and go for it. I think that's what my biggest takeaway from skiing is.
You probably never thought you'd make it to 2 Olympics. You just kind of followed what you were interested in, and it led to a pretty good result and a great education. So you're on the right track in that sense with ski racing, just kind of following your passions and interests. Yeah,
no, I mean, you're spot on there. It's just, I had that vision and that dream, and I just followed it. And that was it.
You didn't overthink it.
No, it's really not.
Did you have any artistic inspirations?
I think like my artistic inspirations are, I don't know, not really. I can't say like I have like a painter I followed or a person I followed. I like exploring kind of the realms of art and just trying stuff. So if I see something, that could be cool. I'm drawn to, certain impressionist paintings. I'll take out a palette knife and work away on a canvas, or, I see some architectural drawings. I'll get out a fine brush and like do some like really geometric triangles. Not really inspired by one thing or another. It's just, I love exploring and experimenting, and there's just so many things you can be to try out. Like I think that's been my path in art.
What got you into art? Was it a course at school then, or was it a certain artist?
It was some class at school. Like I said, I was in an engineering program, and I'd kind of, through the process, I've realized I'm not going to sit in front of a computer doing crunching numbers. So I kind of shifted more towards the product design side and hands-on working, building, CAD, kind of having that process, that really building and human scale process. And through that, there was some drawing classes underneath the architectural department that I had to do. And once I got working with my hands on paper, doing drawings, I kind of got attracted to that field, and it kind of opened that whole department up that, I didn't know much about before, the whole arts department. And talking to the profs there and my classmates, they encouraged me to try out some painting. And that's when I got into the painting classes. And kind of I wish I was at Dartmouth longer, maybe a little bit, or I kind of found this arts department earlier. I probably would have spent more time sculpting classes and different realms of that. But yeah, it was definitely kind of an obscure way I landed on the painting.
It's also really cool that you're actually pursuing your kind of passion and trying to, a lot of people I think kind of suppress that desire, or that their goal is to be a creative, and a lot of people seem to ignore that part of their life.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's easy to, I think, easy to ignore it. I think as humans, it's in our DNA to create and explore. But like our system is really set up, and our needs in like Western society about materialistic stuff, that people put a lofty goal on what they need to own to be like quote unquote happy. So like cars and houses, and these things cost money, and to get money you need to exploit your ideas or your skills, your knowledge that you've attained. So people put a lot of time focusing on profiting from their skills that they've developed or the knowledge they've attained. They achieve their material kind of goals, but it's hard to find space for that kind of exploring or artistic or creative side in your life, because life gets so busy, when there's less profits or less opportunity for financial gains on that side of the spectrum, and people just don't make a lot of time for it in their life. You have those artists that kind of refuse to, the starving artist that just spends their entire life exploring and creating, and they never actually take their art to the side where they're selling it or to the profiting from it. They live a really interesting life, but very different values on what they're trying to achieve.
That was one part I noticed in the story about Da Vinci, is that even maybe one of the most creative people of all time struggled to pay the bills at times.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think it's easy as an artist to get caught up in your head, just kind of thinking of new things and exploring your field and what you want to try to do. And you don't take the time to kind of, I think that's where like maybe a good entrepreneur can take those ideas and take those creative thoughts, and then be able to, work through like some systems and methodologies to kind of actually create some profits or some material gains out of your ideas. I think that's the difference between, Da Vinci that gets, or some artists that gets like trapped on that one side of the spectrum.
Do you find yourself having to plan out your artistic business, or do you view it as a business, or do you kind of have to separate the two?
I think I'm at least aware of I think that trade-off, and I've positioned my art where I've from the time where I said, I'm going to be part-time, I'll call myself a part-time artist, certainly not a full-time artist, but I want to be able to sell paintings and create like a revenue stream from it. If I'm going to put this much time into it, then I need to create some kind of revenue from it. So I think I've been good at creating models and websites and whatnot, where you can sell art and market art and generate some revenues from it to sustain that creative passion. So, but I mean, there's tons of artists that have a hard time making that link and being able to make some revenues from their art. But
My mom's an artist, actually. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Grew up with that a lot, and obviously you don't do it for the money. Another thing is that you also run out of time. When you're an artist, you're trying to create, and that's your job, and it can be really difficult to find time for the business aspect of it all. At least that's what I noticed with my mom.
Yeah, totally. Well, you've lived it, you've seen it.
Did you know Mark Sharp when you were, or do you know Mark Sharp now?
Yeah. I mean, I actually listened to the podcast on Mark Sharp. Mark Sharp's always been kind of a inspiring figure that I looked at.
Yeah.
I didn't know him that well in the national team because the men's and the women's programs are almost like independent programs. We spent so little time together, so we didn't cross paths that much. But I knew him from the national team, and then when I kind of made the career change to art, I'd reached out and talked to him about the art world, and I think he gave me some good perspectives on the art world and on that side of things. And yeah, I mean, certainly interesting. We've got some crazy similar stories in terms of upbringing and then involvement with the national ski team and sport, and then also in terms of the programs, like he's running Team Pano, and I was running the Camp Fortune Ski Club for 7 years. So yeah, a lot of parallels with Mark.
It's amazing how similar you guys really are. When I was thinking about it afterwards, did you always want to do oil and acrylic style, or was that your preferred medium?
So my university courses were in oil. When I started working with paints after college, I was kind of focused on the oils and on canvas, and using a lot of heavy texture and kind of impressionistic techniques. And I think that's where I started. I moved a little bit into acrylics in the last 3 years or so to play more with like very fine lines and geometric figures. I just found with them drying much quicker, it was like a much easier medium to work with. But I still have a preference for oil when I'm working on like heavy things. It's like such good color depth, and the texture is just really cool, and how it stays open so long that you can keep changing and manipulating the painting for hours after you've laid your initial stroke. I think that's pretty cool.
There's so many mediums you can get into. It's amazing. It's almost like you have to pick one and just give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you pick, you've got to spend at least enough time to, develop your skill set around it to really achieve what you want artistically. So, each, whether you go water or acrylic or oil, you put your time in. I think, a lot of the acrylics are getting better too, where you can buy stuff that stays open longer and, mimics oil a little bit more. Now, oil is just, it's great, but it's also really messy. It's tough to clean up, and it smells really bad. And there's all kinds of negatives around that.
Is there any particular process or environment that really helps you with your creative process and your workflow? Do you have an office, or how does that work?
Yeah, I have a studio that I work out of. I mean, having an environment where you can kind of go to separate from your regular life, I think is productive. I mean, my process is pretty simple. I have an idea, write down the idea in a notebook, follow up with a sketch, and then I'm not too quick on doing. I don't do a lot of small iterations. I just kind of go into my final work and spend a lot of time on it. That's my process. Different from others that kind of do like mini sketches and I guess more trials along the iterations along the way. But I'm kind of like idea, final product. That's kind of what I like doing.
In terms of the business side of things, do you think you'll end up setting up a gallery, or do you have a gallery? Or are you trying to get into galleries now?
I've experimented a little bit. No, I'm not sure yet. I've done mostly direct sales and commissions. So I'll do some creative pieces that you usually generate interest, and people will want pieces that are similar to that. And then I'll paint them, contracted out. I've done a couple shows in galleries and had some good success there. My problem is I have a hard time like fulfilling the amount of paintings that a gallery would want to have available. So I've kind of done mostly direct sales and online sales.
And that's been enough to run the business, or at least get by.
Yeah, I mean, you've got advantages on both sides, right? If you do direct sales, you keep 100% of your profits. If you're selling through galleries, you're losing, 30, 40, 50% of your profits. That adds up quick. You got to paint a lot of paintings if you're losing 40% of your revenue stream. With the marketing online now through Instagram and Facebook and different mediums, you can access a pretty big audience that previously you'd need a gallery to like bring in clients and have that network to send out newsletters and magazines to attract buyers. But nowadays with the power of the internet, you can really do a lot more direct sales without the use of a middleman. At least for the volume of paintings that I do, that's been my approach.
Have you seen any of your other classmates or people you kind of race with follow paths like you're on now, more of a creative, self-employed style of business?
I wouldn't say there's as many that have followed this path. I think the majority of people I know have found jobs and careers with like kind of a boxed in roles and responsibilities. And so I think I'm a little bit unique on that. I mean, I've had friends that have started worm farms and, different things like that. But yeah, a bit more of an oddball career.
It seems like a lot of people, it's just rare that people kind of follow that career path, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if you're going to hedge your bets on like creating a good income and a good quality of life, you're not going to put your money on athletics and art. They're kind of two where you've got a low probability of success. I know coming from one that certainly athletics or ski racing particularly is not one that is super well known for creating a lot of income, and that shifting over to art didn't really change that. It's kind of the same situation.
Right. But on the flip side, Mark, for instance, he's done really well with his art. There's opportunity, to make a pretty good living on it.
Certainly. I mean, the 1% gets wealthier and wealthier.
Yeah.
they like to have a nice piece of art. So it's definitely a good place if you want to sell art to the 1%. That's really the target market.
What are you reading these days? What do you like to read? Do you have any inputs on that end?
Yeah, I've got kind of a diverse reading list. So I've been reading a little bit about kind of culture books too, like The Culture Code and The Infinite Game. I kind of dabble in historical fictions too, history books. I'm reading a history of the Third Reich right now. So I'm a little bit all over the map. Whatever, and floating from one to the other is kind of fun too. You don't get too serious, and then you switch over to something a little bit lighter. That's my take.
Have you ever read Dune?
Dune, I haven't read. No.
Okay.
Should I add it to my list?
Yeah. If you're into sci-fi or even just fiction, is one of the best ones I've ever read.
I think that's an old one too, eh?
Yeah.
I think my parents had it on their bookshelf when I was growing up.
Yeah, like 60s.
Could that be possible? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, it's definitely on their bookshelf. I might have to borrow their copy one day.
Apparently it was the inspiration for Star Wars, even like that far back.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fiction guy or sci-fi, but I read it this summer and really got into it. And so I've been asking people lately if they've read it. Are you still skiing lots nowadays then?
Yeah, I ski tons. Just my skiing's changed a lot. I just follow my kids around on the ski hill, which is a real pleasure. It's tons of fun to, see their joy for the sport and see their development. So my kids are, I got 3 boys, two here in Ottawa that are 5 and 7, and then I have an older boy that's 10. Skiing with them and following them through the trees and off jumps, and I think that's my skiing nowadays. It's a lot of fun.
What advice would you give to someone pursuing an artistic career or entrepreneurial career like you've done so far?
The advice I would give is to follow your passion. Like if you really want to do it, make it happen. I think with entrepreneurship and art and sport, it's pretty easy to kind of take the easy route and like maybe shift away to something a little bit more secure, something more like traditional in terms of employment or jobs. But if you're the type of person that wants that excitement, wants a challenge, wants to try something different, then just go for it. Like that's my advice. Don't wait till you're 60 and go, oh, I wish I had tried this, or I wish I had pursued an art career. Like we were talking earlier, there's opportunity in every field that you go into. Artists can make a good living. Athletes can have a very fulfilling career and make a good living too. Mm-hmm. So do what you're passionate about. That'd be my advice.
Well, that's great. That's a really good conversation. I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks very much for having me on the show, and we got to get some coffee of yours over to the East Coast here.
Absolutely.
Start sipping them in the morning.
That sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you liked what you heard, check out rosebros.ca, where we will have upcoming shows. You can also find our coffee and chocolate there, where we plant one tree for every bag or bar sold through our partnership with One Tree Planted, a cool not-for-profit organization focused on global reforestation. Until next time, happy coffee drinking.